Welcome to the state capitol in Sacramento. The question of education spending seems to be a hotly debated issue pervading the state government. California spends an average of $11,000 per student per year, ranking 41st in the nation. Governor Brown recently proposed a new budget which would allocate around $78.3 billion toward education, a modest increase. Today we talked to state legislators about their opinions regarding education spending. California is ranked in the bottom half of school spending. What do you think we should do about this?
Well, spend more money. That's the short answer. I guess it depends on where you come from. I mean, because we've gone through a big recession, and it started in 2008, and it hit California harder than it hit other states. So one of the things that we've done when I got elected in 2010 to 2011, we've increased the funding every year. Now we're back to 2008 and 2007 numbers, right? But the increase per student is something like 4,900 per student. So if you just look at the last 7 years, you think, well, that's good. You're increasing. When you look at when you look at what it was in 2007, we're just back there. I would say that we're probably, so we'll continue to do it because it's a commitment that we have. But with 40 million people, it's a lot more that has to be done. We have just a larger diversity than a homogeneous state like Wisconsin or Idaho that have a population that's more closer together with medium family income. We have very rich and very poor. It's a matter of limited resources. The voters 40 years ago voted for Prop 13. In 1978, the way that we funded schools was that we looked at what's the problem. You need a gym in the junior high. You need a science lab in the high school. You need a playground at the elementary school. And we say, okay, what does that cost? Put it out to bid, and then we would raise the property rates for all the people in that jurisdiction after they had a vote to pay for it. So you looked at your needs. Now we have it's fixed. You can't change the rates. Grandmama is very happy because she can stay in her home. We got this phantom grandmama who's out there that can stay in her home and not raise the property taxes. So young persons like yourselves it's a crushing idea of buying a house in the Bay Area versus, my father bought a house for $99 down in 1959. Well, that wasn't that much money. We didn't set the bar so high, and that crowd, that greatest generation, got the legislature or got the public voted in 1978 to limit the amount of property taxes that we can come in. So we get a finite amount of money. Every generation, your generation, the generation 10 years ago comes in and says, do more for spending, but we only have so much pie. I'd like to make more pie.
Well, I think we need to continue to provide funding as we're able to related to our budget. You're going to find between last year and this year, we've added more money in the budget, the governor's proposal, and we ultimately approved it last year, and this year his proposal is to add significantly more money. When you heard that we maybe have a $6 billion surplus, half of that money automatically goes to schools, K through 12, and community college, K through 12. Because of Proposition 98. So we need to continue to look at ways to fund education. It's probably the top issue that constituents and voters in the state are concerned with.
Well, I do think that that's a problem. One thing I have to tell you about the statistic is we have to make sure that we're talking about apples to apples comparisons. We still actually spend less than many other states, but it's not quite where it's at. Our number one priority in this state is education, but we don't prioritize it high enough, and we've got to do a better job of making sure that we get money into the classroom to students to make sure that students are first, and because education is such a huge priority in this 21st century economy.
I think we should raise taxes so we'll have more money.
Okay.
That's a very, very large question. California is the only state that pays for the K-14 system entirely out of the general fund. That happens because Prop 13 was put in place in the late 70s and moved local revenues, which were paying for education, which is how all other states pay for education, moved that responsibility up to the state. And because the state budget has a lot of fluctuations to it, that's why we've seen some real changes. So unless we do tax reform of some kind, we will always be at the bottom. There's not much we can do unless we find other sources of revenue.
Education spending in California is a widely debated topic. Today we heard different legislators' stances on it. This has been Ria Punjwani at the State Capitol in Sacramento.